in a matter of 5 days. The balance in a Clydesdale hoof is the same as in a Hoof, and trimming is the same but on a much larger scale. Clydesdales are a little bit different than the normal horse. Don't ever think that you're big and strong enough to outstrength one of these big fellas, because if they really want to put their foot down, there's nothing you can do to stop them. So you have to work very much in their happy spot and keep them very comfortable, which is a little bit difficult sometimes because a Clydesdale has got a very loose lower leg, and where a normal horse can hold it up there like that, the Clydesdale can't. It's very loose. So if you're going to work with this horse, you really have to support this hoof in the best way you can, but by holding it and supporting it with your legs, because the whole thing is very floppy. So you need to clamp the horse in there but still stay within the happy spot, the comfortable zone, so the horse will allow you to work. Cleaning out is exactly the same as any other horse's foot. We still must go in and find the reference point, which is the active tip of the frog and the 2 critical heel junctions back in here, where the widest part of the frog meets the hoof wall. Let's trim all of this out. Thus. Now we can start to take out all of these inside pieces. I use a sole chisel on a lot of these big horses. It's a lot easier to get the bar controlled with a soft composite hammer to take the shock out of it on the horse's hoof. Now underneath here you'll see the reason why I've taken these bars out. See the bruising through there where the horse has actually been walking on this bar. That's why we need to reduce those bars, because they will cause problems and you get an infection down through there when the bar breaks, and then you've got lots of problems. This horse's hoof has broken off on the inside here at some stage or other, so it's very narrow, but normally a Clydesdale's foot is very wide and stubby at the toe. You'll see here though that the parameters of measurement are still there. You find the active tip of the frog. Way back down in here are the 2 critical heel junctions, and we can measure that. At the moment it measures 8 at the toe, and to the existing heel buttress it's 7. So if I shorten that toe a little bit and get that down to about 7.5, then all I've got to do is just level these heels off to get the correct balanced measurement. Use a big rasp for a Clydesdale foot. just reduce that toe a little bit. You can see in there the irregular thickness of the hoof wall. So we need to go forward with this hoof and rasp this flare down here to get an even thickness of capsule. Up on the knee or using the hoof stand, I prefer to use my knee because it simply means if the horse moves in any direction I can move this knee to maintain control of the hoof. I'll just run a pencil line around there to show you what we need to do in the front of this hoof. We just need to take that little bit of flare off there and round the toe off by doing this. So that's as much rasping as you need to do in the toe area, but now it's maintained that nice round profile in the front there. Right, we've actually ended up with 8 at the toe. We've got a nice even hoof capsule, a nice round toe as much as we can get. And so to drop this down and get it even, we need to drop these heels down to 8, and that's a straight line straight across the heels there. Now sometimes these Clydesdales, the hoof is so big, we've got to use something like this. It's a double action cutter. I won't use this today on this horse because he doesn't really need it, but when you're cutting a lot of hoof off, this is about the only way you can do it, is with a pair of those. These feet are still quite soft today because we've had some rain. I can get in there quite comfortably with these nippers and do this and get them even through there. Then touch it up with the rasp again. And then simply trim out these seed of corn areas to make sure that there's no more pressure there. Take a bit of sole out the front there to concave it. Okay, that's about it. We won't do the lateral medial measurement because it's not going to work out on this foot. By looking down the back of the leg here now and making sure that you've got a nice T-square across the heels, that's the very best we can do with this kind of foot, except to maintain it a bit more regularly. Get in here and trim this frog out. This frog is just all starting to exfoliate, so I'm going to have to take the top of it off in order to find the reference point in the tip of the frog there and the 2 heels. I'll just trim that one off a bit. Like this. You can see the nice new frog underneath there. Find the active tip. Like this. Take the bars down. You'll see in here a crack through that part of the bar, and this is the danger area where if we don't reduce the height of these bars, they come up and fall over and they'll crack through there and through here, and that's where you'll get the most horrendous abscess in there that takes a long time to heal. If you don't trim this bar back as nature intended it to be trimmed back, it will crack in that area and you will get an abscess. If you get an abscess in there, it goes right down into the bulbs of the heel and infects this whole back area, and it takes a long time to rehabilitate. One of the worst areas where you can get an abscess is back there in the bar area. This particular hoof requires very little trimming at the toe. It's already come right back. So if I measure that with a ruler, it's already 8 at the toe. If I come back here to 8, it's through there and across here to there. You can see in here the only 2 areas where it needs to be reduced. The toe is already at 8. The heels, if I drop them down to there, it will be an even distance between the 2. Alright. Drop this one down to there. I prefer to have more control over the horse's back leg. On the back leg here I stand 45 degrees across the back of the horse, be it as Clydesdale or an ordinary horse or a pony, and lock my armpit over the hock and just rest on the horse. That pushes this foot into my knee, and to feel the horse feels more supported this way. Now I just reduce these bars a little bit more, if I can. Holy smoke, that's rock solid in there. Make a bit of sole out across the toe. That fashion, and then just simply round the edges off. Now with a Clydesdale, he needs to stand cow-hocked, so one tends to need to drop the inside heel and leave the outside heel up a little bit, and you'll see the profile of the horse's hoof here. It's very straight on the inside edge, but it has a big flare on the outside. That causes the horse to stand cow-hock, so that when he's pulling with the chain and the traces hooked to the collar and hames, there's room down here for the chain traces to pass through his hocks. When these horses start to pull then, the traces widen out under the pressure of pulling the implement, and these hocks straighten up for power. But they must always start off cow-hocked like this, and certainly for showing purposes. Now it's my belief that anybody who's thinking of embarking on a career as a farrier, who dodges the responsibility of working with these big horses, are really missing out on a whole segment of their education. It's okay to shoot and trim normal horses because they're easy, but these big horses are part of your repertoire and part of your responsibility as a farrier. And when you realise that the parameters in this foot are exactly the same as they were in the pony's foot, there's no reason not to do it. The answer to all the problems are simply balance, and the 19 millimeters back from the active tip of the frog is as relevant in this horse as it is in a horse that's prepared to win the Melbourne Cup or a pony in harness. In extreme cases of overgrowth, once again the balance point will indicate where to trim. This Clydesdale had 5 inches of growth all around, with actually 15 months between trims, and was trimmed in exactly the same method as I use on any horse. The biggest problem, of course, was cutting through the thickness of the hoof wall, and it took 5 of us nearly 2 hours to trim the hooves, but at the end all 4 hooves were correctly balanced.